Hey there everybody, welcome back to Storytime with Jasper. I hope that you all have been doing well and that you are ready for another story today. I hope that you make yourself comfortable, that you have, that you're in a nice comfortable space. I have my fort here with me, I have my plushy friends around me, and my favorite plushie, Zilla, to join us for today's story. You ready for this story here, Zilla? All right. Make sure you get your plushie buddy next to you. If you need to get yourself a beverage of some kind, you can. A nice drink to go with your story. Make yourself comfortable as we jump into a story written by Daniel Pinkwater. Now, Mr. Pinkwater here has written a story called The Big Orange Splot. The Big Orange Splot. Do you see that? It just looks like a mess on top of this guy's house. And what is this big orange splot? And why is it such a big deal that somebody wrote a story about this big orange splot? We're gonna take a look at it together right now. Are you ready? Make sure you're all comfy. Get those clothes that are nice and soft. Get your soft and fluffy little plushy buddy. And we're gonna go ahead and get started. All right? With the big orange splot. Mr. Plumbean lived on a street where all the houses were the same. Here's a picture of Mr. Plumbean. Look at his wonderful mustache and his little bald head. So Mr. Plumbean lived on a street where all the houses were the same. He liked it that way. So did everybody else on Mr. Plumbean Street. This is a neat street, they would say. Look at that. Every single house is exactly the same as the house next to it. And you know what? They liked it that way. Then, one day, a seagull flew over Mr. Plumbean's house. He was carrying a can of bright orange paint. No one knows why. And he dropped the can, nobody knows why, right over Mr. Plumbean's house. Look at that, a seagull out of nowhere with some paint. And he dropped the paint on Mr. Plumbean's house. Why did he do that? Nobody knows. Nobody knows why this seagull is doing anything. The point is, he did. You see, when that paint was dropped from that seagull, it made a big orange splot on Mr. Plumbean's house. Oh, too bad, everybody said. Mr. Plumbean will have to paint his house again. I suppose I will, said Mr. Plumbean. But he didn't paint his house right away. He looked at the big orange splot for a long time. Then, he went about his business. The neighbors got tired of seeing that big orange splot. Someone said, "Mr. Plumbean, we wish you'd get around to painting your house." "Okay," said Mr. Plumbean. So Mr. Plumbean didn't paint his house right away. He just stared and stared at this big orange spot on his roof. But now, he's gonna get around to painting it, so that's good. He got some blue paint and some white paint, and that night he got busy. He painted at night because it was cooler. When the paint was gone, the roof was blue, the walls were white, and the big orange splot was still there. Then he got some more paint. He got red paint, yellow paint, green paint, and purple paint. In the morning, the other people on the street came out of their houses, and their houses were all the same. But Mr. Plumbean's house was like a rainbow. It was like a jungle. It was like an explosion of color. He chose way too many colors to just paint his house. And now his house doesn't look at all like everybody else's house. You see, there was the big orange splot, And then there were little orange splots. There were stripes. There were pictures of elephants and lions and pretty girls and steam shovels. The people said, "Plumbean has popped his cork, flipped his wig, blown his stack, and dropped his stopper." And then they went away muttering. He's crazy. He blew his stack. That day, Mr. Plumbean brought carpenter's tools. That night, he built a tower on top of his roof, and he painted a clock on that tower. Look at Mr. Plumbean's house so far. It's a crazy explosion of colors and pictures. It's all over the place. But now he builds a tower with a clock in it? The next day, the people said, "Plumbean has gushed his mush, lost his marbles, and slipped his hawser." They decided they would pretend not to notice. I don't know about you. I don't know how you pretend to not notice that. When all your other houses are the same, I don't know how you pretend to ignore that one. That very night, Mr. Plumbean got a truck full of green things. He planted palm trees, baboa trees, thorn bushes, onions, and frangipani. In the morning, he brought a hammock and an alligator. When the other people came out of their houses, they saw Mr. Plumbean swinging in a hammock between two palm trees. They saw an alligator lying in the grass. Mr. Plumbean was drinking lemonade. Seems normal. Seems like everything is going normal so far. Not. He's getting all kinds of crazy things. What's going on? Plumbean has gone too far. This used to be a nice street. "Plumbean, what have you done to your house?" the people shouted. "My house is me, and I am it. My house is where I like to be, and it looks like all my dreams," Mr. Plumbean said. The people went away. They asked the man who lived next door to Mr. Plumbean to go and have a talk with him. "Tell him that we all liked it here before he changed his house. Tell him that his house has to be the same as ours so we can have a neat street." Look at him, just enjoying himself in his hammock. So his neighbor is going to go have a talk with him. The man went to see Mr. Plumbean that evening. They sat under the palm trees. Go back a little bit here, James. "Plumbean has gone too far. This used to be a nice street. Plumbean, what have you done to your house?" the people shouted. "My house is me, and I'm it. My house is where I like to be, and it looks like all my dreams," Mr. Plumbean said. The people went away. They asked the man who lived next door to Mr. Plumbean to go and have a talk with him. "Tell him that we liked it better here before he changed his house. Tell him that his house has to be the same as ours so we can have a neat street." Look at him, just enjoying his lemonade. The man went to see Mr. Plumbean that evening. They sat under the palm trees drinking lemonade and talking all night long. So there they are. Early the next morning, the man went out to get lumber and rope and nails and paint. When the people came out of their houses, they saw a red and yellow ship next door to the house of Mr. Plumbean. What? Now the next door neighbor has built himself a ship for a house? What is going on? "What have you done to your house?" they shouted at the man. "My house is me, and I am it. My house is where I like to be, and it looks like all my dreams," said the man, who had always loved ships. "He's just like Plumbean," the people said. "He's got bees in his bonnet, bats in his belfry, and knots in his noodle." Then, one by one, they went to see Mr. Plumbean late at night. They would sit under the palm trees and drink lemonade and talk about their dreams. And whenever anybody visited Mr. Plumbean's house, the very next day, that person would set about changing his own house to fit his dreams. So there's the neighbor who likes boats so much, he dreamed of having a boat, and he built his house to look like a boat. And it looks like when everybody went to go have a conversation with Mr. Plumbean, they changed their house the next day to match their dreams. Like this hot air balloon. Or this styled Taj Mahal. Ooh, somebody changed their house to look like a castle. And this one looks like a Greco-Roman temple with very large columns. Whenever a stranger came to the street of Mr. Plumbean and his neighbors, the stranger would say, "This is not a neat street." Then all the people would say, "Our street is us, and we are it. Our street is where we like to be, and it looks like all our dreams." The end. And that was the Big Orange Splot. Now, when you're thinking about your own story, remember, your story, like we've been saying, is special and unique. It's different from everybody else's story. Some people's stories might be like your story, but no one will ever have your story. So, did you catch something from this story at all? This big orange spot that changed everything. It seems to have changed a lot of people's lives. Made them think about their dreams. What are some things that you hope will end up in your story? Is there something you want to be when you grow up? Is there something that you want to do? Is there something that you think would be really fun to try? Whatever it is, it can help make your story unique and special if that's what you want to go after. Your story. You are special. Your story is unique. You don't have to be like everybody else if you don't want to. But remember, we want to make sure that we are still being respectful, and we can be. We can personalize, whatever we have around us. We have this fort built and made nice, and I get to have my favorite plushie with me. Maybe you get to personalize your room. Maybe you get to decide what you wear. Whatever it may be, it's you. It's unique. It's special. And you are what helps make your story a good story. So, I hope that you enjoyed today's story of the Big Orange Splot, and we hope to see you again sometime soon. Alrighty? Thanks for stopping by. Take care.